Welcome to the Man Down Podcast. Today we're going to talk a lot about Patrick's and my reactions to Taylor Swift's new album. And strangely enough, we're going to talk about the right-wing psycho funnel at the same time. We got to weird places in this, and there were a lot of places that we went that I don't think we expected, but it ended up being a pretty interesting, actually exceptional conversation about the mess that the world's in today, how things ended up kind of here, and what you can do to push back against it. So stay tuned.
But I'm like,
for those of you who are joining us in progress, Patrick was mentioning the fact that he is on the vasectomy waiting list.
and it's like, it's quite a boring waiting list to be on, right? A waiting list for like the most miserable day of your life. But when you were younger, did you have the worry that if you were to get the snip, it would change the composition of your emissions?
I don't think I put that much thought into it. And then they took one out. And so I had to live the actual, like, presumably 50% less of my emissions. But I still got my wife pregnant with our third within 6 weeks after we started trying again, with 50% fewer transmission devices or whatever. So anyway, it's a very confusing statement. But and then this led into the thing that Patrick was like, we need to record this, which was that sometimes the people in kind of the slut stack, SlutCon ecosystem are like, oh yeah, we love it when we know that people have had the snip, because it makes everyone's life a little less complicated, or potentially less complicated. And I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm part of that ecosystem, but I'm certainly interested at this point in my life of getting the snip, because I know that even now, like, potentially being virile is in the bag of clubs back there, and I don't need no more kids, and Patrick don't need no more kids either, is what he's trying to say. But we have two people that are associated with the show that are both in the process of getting married, and so then Patrick was like, "Ooh, look at all these potential future children that are going to happen," and I was like, "You're leading the charge, buddy." He's like, "No,
absolutely not, man." Like, the SlutCon women are having babies now, right? Like, there are, I don't really know what. Like, there are like baby sluts out there. Slut babies. That's a better
slut babies. Exactly. Yes. I think Hesed was aggressively trying to get pregnant for about a year, and she was posting, like, each time that, like, the test came up negative, and all of the tests and the hoops that she and her husband went through in order to try and, make sure that they were capable of getting pregnant. And I know this is a problem. So I have a very good friend who, I think he and his wife have had quite a number of miscarriages. And I know you've had a miscarriage as well. And I know that it's not like the easiest thing for a lot of people in a lot of cases. So it's very much about matching up the people that want to get pregnant and would love to have children, and then, like, the other people over here who are, like, accidentally getting pregnant all over the place and don't want any more children. And you're like, I don't think there's an easy way to, like, mesh these two, but it feels like, life has a pretty even distribution on those a lot of times.
Yeah, nobody gets pregnant more easily than a teenager who should definitely not be getting pregnant. But yeah, you do kind of realize when you see that. And also, I think when you realize how tired you are in your mid-30s as a parent, you do realize that we are maybe biologically meant to be having these children when we're like 18, and you can actually get up off the floor. It doesn't matter if you're sleep deprived, as opposed to when you're 36 and you're like, if I have under 7 hours sleep tonight, tomorrow I'm going to commit a violent crime.
I noticed this when I only had 5 years difference between mine. I think my first one happened like 31. My last one was like 36. And it's like, fuck, we're like a lot more tired than we were before. And part of it was like, this one was the worst of the sleepers, but part of it was just like, yeah, like, 5 years time in your 30s, like, probably put on some weight, because all you're doing is like raising kids and trying to survive. Yeah, it's quite different. And throughout most of human history, like, babies have come in the teens and 20s, and that is not the case now. Like, the case now is like late 20s into 30s that people want to have kids.
But maybe now you'd be better at it than you were back then, because if you're now in like peak physical form, maybe you'd be up to it on a new level.
I guarantee that I would be a better dad than I was for my
Oh,
kids when
sure.
they were young. Like that's not close. Like whether it's a physical endeavor is a different thing. Like fucking exhausted also. Like, oh God, dad's taking another nap. Like, because we had him up at 5 and he had to like chase a toddler around and had to park his brain. I mean, you have the time period where your kids are super cute, but
Thank you.
also like your kids also take like all of your brain being condensed down into this little box that is like Patrick shaped and Patrick dad shaped for 2 small children versus actual Patrick is this adventurous like brownie in motion brain that doesn't quite fit in that little box.
Matt, well, I'd like to think so. But it's one of those things where I remember being a student and I remember the fact that I could speak fluently and I could find words when I was looking for them. And now, as my career has got further down the path of talking professionally, I'm completely incapable of constructing sentences anymore and finding words when I'm looking for them. It's an absolute nightmare. The whole time I'm frustrated with my inability to locate the file that I'm looking for in my brain. Despite the fact that, when you're 20, you've got nothing interesting to say. Now I feel like I do have things to say. I can't do it at all. I can only recite Julia Donaldson books. That's my only ability.
Those are fun. Very hungry caterpillar, a little bit. How much you ate and ate and ate. How many sausages did you have this morning?
I had to use the hungry caterpillar to explain something to my daughter the other day when she was just like, "What's wrong, Papa?" And I was like, "My tummy hurts." And she was like, "Papa, why does your tummy hurt? Does your waist hurt?" She said, and I was like, yeah, I guess, I don't know. And so I had to say, how when the very hungry caterpillar like has a really big Saturday where he eats a lot of shit, and then on Sunday he eats one nice green leaf, and then he feels much better. I was like, that's where Papa is today, and she was like, okay, sure. I'd explained it, like she was a consultant doctor, and I'd said, and she was, oh right, okay, right, well we'll check that later on our rounds. Okay, fine.
This is most of life, right? Explaining things in a context that makes it easy for people to understand, regardless of how complicated the subject is to explain.
I smell a segue. Well, this is the thing. I mean, we've got a couple of topics today. Where do you want to start? We're going to talk about anxiety, and we were also going to talk about, I guess, because we're on YouTube as well, social media and the fact that young men are getting funneled relentlessly towards right-wing extremism, basically. Like, it was very interesting that I've been consuming, obviously, a lot of parenting content. Now I have children, and you see people say, all you got to do is teach them. It's really simple. All you got to do is teach them to read. All you got to do is teach them media literacy. All you got to do is, teach them to have respect for other people. And then I read a thing the other day by a woman who's the mother of teenage boys, and she said, yeah, that's actually not quite true anymore, because you do need to do all that stuff. You should do all that stuff. But even if you keep them away from the psychos on YouTube, their friends are watching them. People they know are watching them. Their friends' older brothers are watching them. And slowly, this stuff does start to seep in. So, and I guess we've seen this recently, like Adolescence, I guess, covers this, the Netflix show. But also we've seen a lot of like terrorism carried out by radicalized young men who aren't necessarily like associated with a particular ideology, except the one thing that unifies them is the sense that they are being shortchanged by the world and that somebody is responsible for it, whether it's other men who are taking their kind of place in the sexual food chain, whether it's women who are not giving them what they deserve as a good guy, or politicians who are denying them the economic opportunities they think they want. It does now feel like this is kind of everywhere. And as YouTubers, which is, I hate to break it to you, Ted, but you're a YouTuber now.
Shit.
Yeah, you're a YouTuber. It comes Russell. White guys, we're gonna start a podcast. Yeah, like this is everywhere.
As we discussed, our podcast is mostly emotional, handling and therapy amongst friends. That's what a podcast is, right? It's not really yeah. So anyway, we're YouTubers apparently. So here, I have some thoughts about this, especially given that I have a 16-year-old boy, and his mother and I talk pretty regularly about how do we raise like a boy that we can be proud of, that can make his own decisions. And it's hugely challenging. And people say you just need to do this, right? And the reality is, like, the world at large has changed so dramatically just in 10 years that all of these things that people say are things that they think, but there's not evidence based information around that.
Mm.
Now, it's true that you need to teach people to think for themselves. And it's true that you need to instill a sense of belief and value into your children that you should be proud of. But that doesn't mean that they're going to accept it. Like
Yeah.
you and I have talked about rejecting various things from our parents. We know lots of people that like completely reject various teachings from their parents. So, and this is before any sort of social media based interactions. Like this is just what
Mm.
it used to be like. You used to be able to see who someone hung out with, as opposed to what media they were watching on their very private little device, which is entirely different thing. Like you kind of had a sense of like what books they might be reading, or like they could keep them to themselves, but they have to go to certain lengths to do that. But one of the things that people don't say is that all the social media is built on nudges toward a direction that they think will get engagement, right? And I know that like you've talked a little bit in the research about this,
Mm.
and engagement's fucking terrifying because like engagement can mean yes, I'm angry about this thing, or yes, I think this is bullshit and I don't want to see that, or I had some sort of interaction with it. But the fact that you then interact with it means that you might get slightly more palatable versions of that, means that you might just continue to get drip fed that. It just points you in
Mm.
a direction. Maybe someone gorgeous out there is talking about a thing and you find yourself responsive in that moment to something that could be said because you're attracted to the person, or at least you're interested and compelled by what they might be saying. And, honestly, over the years, these crazy rallies that people used to have with, hundreds of thousands of people were often led by charismatic leaders. So someone
Mm.
saying something in a way that like you find compelling is how things happen in the world all along. It's just now you get a one-to-one moment inside of your screen, which is quite different.
Yeah, and you see this right with like right wing content in America. There's a kind of raft of like hotties who they roll out to talk about this shit. Similarly, I don't know, when I was at uni, I remember the Christian Union would come and knock on your door, and they would always send like their finest
Mm.
minds,
Mhm.
like because they knew that it would work on you. You'd look at them and you'd be like, man, like maybe I just have incredibly clear skin. Like if I believed in God, maybe He would grant that to me. But it's actually something we kind of tussle with, even on the football side, right? Where you need clicks to make your work like financially viable,
Yeah.
and you've got to accept the fact that the platform does try and drive people towards certain kinds of content. So if your work is divisive, if it is a bit inflammatory, people love that. Like it does do better. And in our case, like we try and be somewhat ethical about it. We say, okay, this is a punchy title, but did we really say this in the video? Like, is it
Mhm.
really an accurate representation of the content we're putting out? But most people don't really care about doing that. And then YouTube itself, even more than other social media sites, I think YouTube is more male than female, and it's young. It's a young platform. So you do get a lot of young right-wing men on YouTube who kind of drive the conversation. And like I've been YouTubing now for 10 years. 10 years actually. And I've been lucky enough to meet a load of nice people along the way, to get involved with a pretty pleasant fan base.
Mhm.
But you do realize as soon as one of your videos breaks containment, what a kind of insane environment it is out there. And of course as well, like you get pushed slowly along the path towards greater extremism. So I know there's this thing about Bolsonaro in Brazil. There was like a long read in the New York Times about this, where he was just this kind of guy who was seen as a bit of a rising star, but was really just popular on social media. And people would listen to him or get driven to him by like other faintly right wing people or musicians, even, who would then talk about their politics. And suddenly you've got this enormous surge of support for a fascist. Similarly, like when I first watched YouTube videos, which was really around like 2010, that kind of time, 2009, 10. Um, I remember like watching Christopher Hitchens videos. Like I loved Christopher Hitchens videos back then. I was like an atheist. I was a little knob. Um, and he is a great speaker. He's a great speaker. But if you watch that, then it will push you towards Sam Harris, and then maybe towards people like Douglas Murray or Ben Shapiro. And suddenly you're into people who are a little bit like Great Replacement-y. And from there, it goes to the real psychos
Even Jordan Peterson, right? So like
Oh
Jordan
yeah,
Peterson sounds like he makes sense, and like he sounds like he cares about people, and like he says things that like sort of like you can glom onto and be like, oh, this person isn't necessarily that bad, and it is just like directly adjacent to this horrible slippery slope of maleness and how things used to be, and the reality is, in so many ways, how things used to be is wrong. Let's just like say that very, very clearly. How things used to be is wrong. And a lot of recent stuff in the world have seen retractions towards people aggressively pulling life back towards how things used to be.
yeah,
And this is true in a progress space, although many cases, if they can make more money from how things might be in the future, they'll sell you that dream instead.
sure.
But politically, and in terms of like the gender divide and how everything works, it feels like the last 10 years in particular have been an aggressive step towards how things used to be, whether the people peddling this believe in it or not.
Mm,
And that's like a really important thing. You have seen many people associated with governments or that came from outside of the governments. They helped the government get elected, and they're doing it mostly for their own profit. And I'm not going to be specific about who I think those people are, but like if you ever see me in person, I'll talk at length about this. It's not conspiracy theory. These things were predicted ahead of time when you saw the associations and which type of money was attached to their businesses or their political contributions or anything like that.
mm,
And the reality is they're doing it so that they can get some money from the biggest money organizations possible, which are governments. People fucking love to get money from the government, and those contracts can last forever, and they just disappear into the sludge fund. Um, and what they'll do in order to get that money is unbelievable. And we've seen it in right wing media too. You take people that used to be centrists, and
mm,
then you attach a 200,000 a year contract to them if they'll put out a certain type of media and appear at certain types of conferences, and we'll give you your talking points. And it's an easy check, right? It's the same thing that you used to see someone like, gosh, who's the dorkiest possible politician you could think of that has a little bit of charm in front of people, but actually is quite dumb once you get past the surface? Oh, it's the guy with the floppy hair that got a newspaper column. Well, gosh, newspaper columns used to pay you crazy amounts of money back when it used to be something that people
mm.
used to buy every day. And then we just trot him out on talking points. And eventually, some fucking idiot like that was there mostly because he had good connections and we needed to give him a check, ends up being the prime minister of one of the more notable Western countries in the world. Why? Well, it's a weird sequence of events that got you there. Does he believe anything about that? Not really sure, but he had a lot of kids that he had to pay for and he needed a lot of money.
Yeah, man. Like I still attribute that to Have I Got News for You and Top Gear, that they started putting that fucking guy on there and saying like, isn't he funny? And the thing is, he kind of is quite funny. He's not actually a stupid man. He's just a completely morally empty man.
Yes.
And so he was able to be like pretty charming and funny on chat shows, but not the kind of guy you would want to run your country or to handle what was already an extremely difficult economic situation. But like it's very difficult to have this
The
conversation
American
without.
president, like, let's just not leave that one out, right? Like, we went with the mini version, but the big version is a
Yeah.
much bigger version. Exactly the same story.
Yeah,
Morally
man.
empty, like liked money, needed money, was, and possibly available to the largest bidders. And that's where we've ended up. And yes. So the reason why we talk about this stuff, the reason why people are scared of it is because it leads to a world that retracts into some level of barbarism that we should have left behind ages ago. And it's often
Mm.
coming back to young men. And that's terrifying in a lot of ways. But in other ways, it means that it's a solvable problem. Like if we can teach people that, hey, this isn't the future that you want, choose a better future, be active about it. Like that's interesting. So please continue. But I felt like we couldn't leave behind the biggest example.
Sure. Yeah, and you're just like Mark Burnett, that guy who came up with the idea for The Apprentice. Does that guy take any responsibility for what's gone on here? He probably should. But for people who are kind of wondering, like, is this a real problem, or is this kind of like hand wringing parent problem? We've now got like a bunch of terrorist attacks. Like there was that Christchurch attack in 2019. There was Elliot Rodger. There was the Toronto van attack, in 2018. Like all these things, like there have been inquiries afterwards which have determined that these people were radicalized by social media, or what's called now self-radicalization, where you essentially go and find yourself a little group of people who are going to tell you exactly what you want. And it's actually very similar to what we're seeing with people getting themselves into knots by talking to Chat GPT about what's going on in their lives.
Yes.
It just all it does is parrot back what you want to hear. And so if you find a message board where no one's going to challenge your opinion and they're going to say, yeah, I guess that like it must be 5G that did that, then over time you are going to believe that to be a much more normal opinion than it is. It's really scary, man. And of course, as well, there's like political pressure from right wingers. So most of these platforms are extremely reluctant to take any action to address hate speech. One, because obviously these big YouTubers or big Twitter accounts drive clicks, like they drive people to the platform. And that's what YouTube care about. YouTube want people to come to YouTube. So we used to get incentivized, like I don't really know how the algorithm works now, but certainly you used to get incentivized for what's called like session starts. So if you were the first thing somebody watched when they came to YouTube, then you kind of got credit for the fact that you were bringing people to YouTube. But that means that you never can try and shut this stuff down because one, it hurts your business model. And of course, two, there's the political idea, which is like, this is censorship, which of course we've always had common sense limits on free speech. Like nothing about that is changing. It's just now it's characterized as some kind of tyranny.
Yeah, I think that there are very good reasons why people struggle with the modern day. And part of it is because they're bombarded by things that they would never choose to interact with before. Part of it is because there are so little consequences from saying things that were previously abominations. Previously, like, if you say certain things in certain places, like you're getting punched, you might get beaten up. Like there are things that will happen to you. And these days, like nothing happens to you, and so that builds, and then people get encouraged by it, and like, oh wow, like I can just say whatever I want to, whatever horrible thing that I might want to say, like can come out there. And again, sometimes they don't believe it, but there's a whole thing in life, like the other side of this is like, believing, like the fake it till you make it thing. Like which personality do you want to build yourself into, and then continue to act like that personality would act. When you choose that in the negative path, like, you follow the road of the Sith, and you might have started out as like a person that just had kind of like slightly negative ideas about things. And then next thing you know, like you're screaming and you're in a lava pool, and things have gone all wrong.
How do you engage with this though, as somebody who does have like a teenage son? Like how do you deal with it?
I try to encourage him to do things that are healthier, but I'm not sure that I have that much impact. I think his mother has more of an impact than I do, and that's pretty natural. Like often, like the boys and moms have like a slightly tighter or more interesting relationship, girls and their dads, particularly in terms of influence, right? I think my ex-wife and children's mother is an outstanding mom, and so she spends a lot of time on this, and I try to spend some time on it, but obviously like my skills are different than this. Like I can be convincing, but I'm not an easy path for all this type of stuff. But trying to be examples, right? Set them examples. Hey, this is really interesting. One of the things I hate about my son's consumption and some other people's consumption is just the same slop over and over again. And slop gets worse, right? The AI slop's not even what I'm talking about, but like just playing the same video games that involve shooting or sports competitions that are just like mindless popcorn to waste time. That type of stuff. And to some extent, like this actually comes back around to like, MMOs. Like I saw a generation of the smartest people I ever met disappear into World of Warcraft for 3 years, like 3 years. And they just like did not. They came back out. They were greasy, covered in pizza, and they just played, online role playing games for 3 years because that was compelling stuff, and they got to feel like they were leveling up in ways that were much more direct than you would feel in real life. So I've seen it happen elsewhere. I find myself slightly scared about it. I don't have good answers other than to just try and go out there to speak negatively about the things that you think are causing problems in the world. Like there are certain political subjects that we have to stay away from because like of just they are too hot topic, and we like, even if we know that it's the right thing, like it's safe for our personal, Instagrams and things like that. But then there are other things where it's like, look, if you're trying to be a better person, and I think all of you can be better people, like this whole podcast is an example of that. Like, let's be examples. Let's provide examples. Let's provide learning journeys that allow people to overcome this garbage as opposed to being consumed by the garbage.
Well, and I think as well, it's really hard to get into this conversation as well without talking about political policy. Like I know you're kind of like a one issue guy now, and I'm pretty close to that as well. Like when we say that, it's not like you don't care about other things, but it does feel like so many of these issues are downstream of the economic problems caused by not
Housing.
enough housing. Like this is always how it feels. You're like, it's so hard, as we know, right? When people feel the economy is doing well, then they vote for incumbent governments. When they feel the economy is doing badly, they vote for somebody else. And it feels like all this rightward turn and all this kind of this movement towards the extreme, right? And anti-immigration policy, everything just feels like downstream from people being like, I don't think that my life is very good. I don't think that my standard of living is great.
I
And
don't
I
own
always just think,
anything.
yeah, they've
I
got no
don't
house,
own
they've got no hope
anything
of it.
that like my past generations have. I have to ask my parents for help. Like, how
Yeah.
shitty does that make you feel? And there's like all sorts of things that are like that. I I can't afford childcare. Therefore, I have to go
Mm.
to my parents. Like, not just that, like, are they offering, but I have to, right? There's a ton of different issues, and we are not one issue people. But if you were to say, how do we make the world dramatically better, is build more housing so that people can, have more babies, which is going to be a crunch thing. And like the immigration shit is all bullshit. It's like all
Mm. All
spectacular amounts
bullshit.
of bullshit. It's something that's been ginned up to like make people feel stuff, much like most of the right wing stuff has been that way. Trans stuff, absolute bullshit.
Oh
Like
my god.
it's fake issues that people might have a reaction about so that they can distract you from everything else that they actually care about. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. Like,
Mm.
I'm talking about people that have, John Byrne Murdoch looking at the immigration stuff, and people are like, actually, they're totally chill about immigration. This is not a thing. In fact, like, we think we need more people to do certain jobs, and
Yeah.
it's okay. And the older people are retiring, and there aren't enough people to do jobs. And so in order to keep the economy rolling, like, we need to do this stuff. It's not a conspiracy when there's like a strong data backed focus from neutral parties that says that actually people don't care about that stuff at all, but the media keeps trotting it out there because it gets some people to react, and it allows them to keep people in this agitated state.
Yeah, the average person in the UK doesn't give a fuck about like trans people, except in the sense of like, I don't really care what you do. Like, I
Yeah.
don't really care what you do. Just so long as I'm left alone, I'll leave you alone. I don't really care. But if you follow UK politics, you'd expect that it was like the biggest issue facing people. It's the same way. I mean, maybe we don't want to wade into this, but it's the same way that when you see the political conversation around Israel in the UK, and then you actually talk to the average person, and you're like, the UK population is overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian. But you would not think that, like, listening to the political conversation.
And to be clear, they're not anti-Jewish. They are anti what is happening in Israel right now as it
Yeah.
is attached to Jewish people. And that's also something that gets lost, right? It gets like, oh, you're anti this group. No, it's not. It's not even racist. It's just like we're anti they are anti the policy. I have very carefully stayed out of all of that. Like, I
Sure.
had a company that had 1,000 Egyptians in it. Like, when it started, like, we had very earnest conversations. And when you have a company, you have a financial obligation and fiduciary duty to be careful about everything that you say in that realm. And it's not to say that, like, we don't have like very human thoughts, but there are times when, like, you absolutely have to stay the fuck out of the way, especially considering that you run a worldwide company that, can have any number of people that would have negative interactions about it. But yes, coming back around to this whole thing, like, the media is owned in large part, not entirely, by a bunch of parties that realized that they could use it as a voice to co-opt people's opinions to get what they wanted, And this is also true of social media. Certain social media sites are owned by media that are looking to do that. And if you look at transactions inside of these social media sites, you see one very big one that people are like, that price seems crazy. And you look at the money behind it and you're like, And then you look at the place where TikTok's supposed to go inside of the United States, and you're like, the same people are behind that, or at least behind some of that. That's also really funky and interesting. It is a huge problem, because when democracy is co-opted, and I cannot believe we're here, but when democracy is co-opted, the first thing that happens is you co-opt the media, because the media is the thing that shines the spotlight on democracy. And the second thing that happens is they compel the courts in different ways. They either scare the shit out of the judges that are legal and valid, or they find ways to put political placements inside of it that are not necessarily in line with what the law has been, but what they want the law to be. Not upholding the past or what they think the structures were, but what they want to change it to. Look very clearly about what's happened in the Western world over the last decade, and you will see these things transparent everywhere once you have the ability to see them.
Do you think, though, like last time we spoke about this, you were quite optimistic about the fact that, you know, at a certain point, people are going to have to get real and start incentivizing immigration or start incentivizing people to have children, like all this kind of stuff. But my concern about that is what it's going to take in order for what people believe based on what they see on social media to break apart and for them to start paying attention to reality again. You know, like you've got a situation right now, for example, in Kent, which is a county in the southeast of the UK. It's where I grew up, for anybody watching who's not from the UK. And like it's got like a reform council there. So like Reform being obviously this right-wing party. And they came in and they said, like, we thought that we were going to be able to cut so much spending. And actually they're having to do council tax hikes now because they do not have enough money. The problem is, of course, that half of Kent County Council's budget goes on social welfare. And so I was like, okay, we're at the stage of this where they're going to have to raise taxes, but they're not going to be able to say we were totally wrong publicly.
Correct.
So what they're going to do is say, this is too many people scrounging benefits. Like, this is benefits cheats. This is immigration. And for people who don't know, Kent has Dover in it, which is obviously where a lot of immigrants like end up when they come to the UK. So it feels like with every story like that, I think, oh, finally, we're going to get these ideas that we're presented with on social media rubbing up against reality. But every time it feels like it can be spun into part of the existing worldview these guys are espousing. My
but only if you allow them
to.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think you're right. But like part of it is pushing back on it. Like only if you allow those talking points to be believable. And then you'll see people like Akala go out there and you'll be like, man, this dude's so sharp. And he just like pokes a hole in every single thing. But the problem is when they own the whole media, like how do you push back against that? And it hasn't been that way in the United States, but in the UK, like most of the media was purchased by right-wing ownership over the course of the last 50 years. It's not even, I mean, these are uncontentious facts that have occurred. And then the BBC, they put someone in place that was clearly like not a normal BBC appointment. It was a political appointment. That person still exists, which is one of the things that's so surprising about the Labour government. They came in with an unbelievable mandate. Like all of the old artifacts that existed in the 15 years of Toryism and austerity, which is something you're talking about. Let's push down. Let's stop funding councils because there's so much fat in the councils. And you're like, where did all the money go that we used to have? Like, where did that disappear into? As someone who puts together a lot of dots and someone who connects the consequences of these dots, like from all of their lives, I've had to turn down paying attention to most of politics, partly because I realized that a lot of it is nonsensical talking points that people do not care about, or that they're lying. They're just happy to go out there and lie about everything all the time. And then the other part of it is, how do you enact change? And when something like the most recent UK election happens and no change happens, that's when everybody becomes so disenfranchised and so disappointed in reality, because you're like, look, this was supposed to be change. It's definitely different than the other people, at least, in everything that we know about them. And nothing happened. Therefore, we are locked in this reality that says that it's just shit all the time. And when that happens, that's when people are easy to radicalize.
But this is the thing. I feel like as I was thinking about this more and more, it just felt like it was another version of 2 or 3 other conversations that we've had, which is like, when people are vulnerable, when they feel insecure, then they're susceptible to any kind of malign influence. Like this is how it's how they become like incel terrorists. It's also just how they become depressed. It's also like, I don't know. I guess that when we're talking about housing or socializing or your social media consumption or anything, it does just feel like it's all related at this point. And I don't really know what we do in this situation. Like, I don't know if we have to teach people a better version of media literacy, or if that's even possible now that AI makes it so much harder to tell the difference between something that's like real coming from a reputable source and something that is total bullshit. Uh, I feel quite pessimistic about this stuff.
I think interacting with it at all, without being like very cautious about your choices, is probably wrong for most people. So you and I have to exist on X, which I think we should call it X now, because it's not Twitter. Like, it's not the place that it used to be. So like X and Blue Sky, like we exist there mostly for news, right? And Blue Sky has its own issues, and but like X is very clearly like a place where if you were not very intentional about what you pay attention to and what you follow, like you will end up in the morass that has been intentionally crafted for this thing. So I feel like being involved there is pretty bad for the most part. Like YouTube, you have to be very cautious. Go seek out the things that you want, but don't allow it to choose stuff for you. Like, that's bad. Like, you should be really careful about letting the algorithm choose anything for you, because you're going to get somebody else's choices that are foisted onto you. And in some cases, like my Spotify algorithm, like I try to be diverse enough to find new stuff on a regular basis, and the algorithm is an easy feeding mechanism. But life isn't easy, and your life is not easy right now. You can make better choices all over the place. The other thing that I would say is something that you and I very intentionally do, which is get off of the apps, go exist in life. Try and find things that allow you to make a difference, or things that you make you feel that are not algorithm coordinated. So stuff like the arts. Like, the arts are incredible, and the arts deserve your attention. And we live in a time in human history where you have more access to beautiful, incredible, feeling-filled things than we ever had before. We're right on the cusp of this AI bullshit. I don't want to talk about that. That's irrelevant. But like, the things that have been created by humans are in such depth and breadth that we've never seen in history of the world. And there's so much stuff you can never get through it. So go find the things that like really make you feel, make the people around you feel, be passionate about it. Like, support the people that are creating the things that you think are awesome, and encourage your parents and your brothers and your sisters and everyone around you to go do those things more. Touch grass more is great too. Like, be active, like do stuff. And the last thing is something that has come back into my life, which is something that you do as an occupation. And I kind of felt like I needed a quest. And my quest is helping to change women's football, because like it's so far behind where the men are, and it makes so much sense to me to do this. You do it in the therapy realm. I'm like, this feels like something that I actually care about and I have expertise on that I can help with. And so despite the fact that I had a very soft, cushy life, and now I'm working harder than I ever have in recent times, I needed something that helped me feel like I could make a change in a positive way. Because as you say, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, if you bombard yourself with the shit that's coming in on social media, you will feel pushed down and negative about everything in the world. And the reality is, the world's a pretty great place as long as you're experiencing it there and not here.
Yeah, that is one of the things that demoralizes me the most. Like, hearing young people be total doomers about the state of the world. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff that's happening in the world, but we also are probably not going to die because our teeth rotted away, and we don't have 50% of women dying in childbirth anymore. And
children don't die because their mom can't breastfeed them, which was something that came up in the rationalist place. Someone's like, breastfeeding, I've talked to so many people, and it's like way harder than you might expect it to be.
It's crazy
like,
hard.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why like kids died regularly from malnutrition, because they couldn't get it from their moms, and we didn't have baby formula that would see them through to viability to eat real food. Like, there's a million different things about the old world that were fucked up, and the new world is better, but we were right on the cusp of so many things that make life better for everybody that now seem to be retracted. I know you care about this, and your wife cares about this a lot, because I see you guys, and like, I love the fact that you're so passionate and compassionate in this space.
Well, it's just, I don't know, man. Like you get to the point where you think you have so much, right? You know, and also I think when you give money to charity, you realize how there are problems still in the developing world which just do not exist in the developed world anymore. So there are charities which go and give vitamin A injections to children, or you start talking to like fancy mums in fancy areas of London who will complain to you about there being fluoride in the water. And you think, fluoride in the water saves lives because people's fucking teeth don't rot away, man. Like this is good stuff. I don't know. We could get off piste here, but I think that you're right. You're absolutely right. Like being connected to community and to a goal and to some sort of like purpose that relates to other people does give you a sense of hope for how things can be. And I think that if you know somebody in your life as well who you suspect is maybe on this path of radicalization, maybe they're spending a lot of time online, maybe they're secretive about what they're doing online, maybe they spend ages on games and they're talking to people and you don't know who they're talking to. You can just ask them who they're talking to, like what they're talking about. It's worth asking, like, how do you know that that thing that that person said is true? If you try and make them feel less alone, then they will be less vulnerable. And you can get them into the habit of questioning stuff they hear because
Mm.
their reaction to if you're 13 and a 17-year-old says something to you, your reaction should be that might be bullshit, not that's gospel because you're telling me kind of something that feels comforting to hear.
You
I
know,
don't know.
that falls in line with the pushback against universities, right? There are reasons to push back against universities because they cost so much. Like that,
Yeah.
that's really like the for-profit university thing is horrific. But universities in general and education for humans in general is a huge benefit that we have had in the widest spectrum. And the pushback against universities has been like, oh yeah, they're overpriced and they're all filled with lefties, which is not true. Like, but they are filled with side of weirdos because mostly weirdos like get down the rabbit hole of a elite topic that they really want to focus on for the rest of their lives. Like that is like prior commitment to being a university professor. You've got to be like a little ultra focused on stuff. But the fact that it teaches critical thinking across so many different spaces in your life is valuable. And
Mm.
the type of people that want to co-opt your opinion and make it so that you're sheep and not critical thinkers questioning everything are the type of people that don't want you to go to university to ask those questions. And I'm not saying that university is strictly a benefit. I think the high price universities are kind of silly, but that type of thinking is the most crucial
Yeah.
thing in the world to build into yourself and your friends and your kids. It's okay to question me. I will explain myself to my kids. If you're upset about
Mm.
something, what are we upset about? Like, what do you not agree with? Why do you not understand that? And you won't always end up at agreement. And again, you have to parent somewhat actively. You have to create people that you're going to be proud of when they grow up and that understand most of the lessons you're trying to imbue. And they won't always like choose the things that you do later in life. Sometimes they'll learn hard lessons. Sometimes you'll have been fucking wrong because you won't
Mm.
understand what's going on in their lives and they'll have more info. But creating a relationship with them where you can ask questions, I will explain myself, we can have
Mm.
as civil a conversation as we're capable of, is really important. And it's not something, this goes back around to the parent, it's not something that used to exist before. It used to be, you will do it my way. This is the way that it'll be. I don't want any questions. And that's the key to having children that help create a better life for everybody.
It's always nice when I talk to you about this stuff because you and a lot of the parents I know of boys, I think, wow, this would have been so we would have been so much better off at the fucking all boys school I went to if we'd all just had parents who talk to us like this, where we're having conversations that where we're not expected to just like defer to the authority. We're not expected to just fall in line and it's okay for us to disagree. I mean, like my dad got better and better at that. But on the other hand, I had Christianity there, which was like, well, there is this authority that you cannot disagree with over
Mm-hmm.
here. Like that does get you into a zone where you kind of think, I need some prophet. I need some messiah who's going to come and tell me how things are done and make it really clear to me. And I get that because it's comforting, but it's almost always horseshit. At least in some regard. So I must say, like, I obviously try and do a good job with my kids, but I often think that it's the parents of boys who are perhaps going to have a more defining effect on what the world looks like over the next generation, in at least in some ways, at the extremes.
If you're a guy, like everything that you believe in needs to stand up to some level of scrutiny. And if
Mm.
it doesn't, then like you shouldn't believe in that. And if you don't know what standing up to some level of scrutiny is, look it up because it's an important thing for you to feel like in the rest of your life. But you can have a boss that just like tells you stuff, right? So this is like bring the most practical example in. If your boss is just telling you to do things because that's the way I said it or that's the way this
Mm.
company operates, like it's probably giving you a line that says that one, if I can't question you, if I just have to do it, and I'm not saying like be an asshole about it, but just like understand it a little bit, then that means that maybe that's not the place you want to work. Right? It's such the simple thing. Like maybe you need a job for now, but you need a different set of skills, or you need to find your way to get to somewhere else. If your girlfriend is poking at you and like your beliefs don't stand up to scrutiny and you get angry about it because she's asking questions, that's a you problem. And that's a you problem that's going to go from girlfriend to girlfriend to girlfriend because it is a you problem. And your girlfriends will have opinions about stuff, whether that is how the world works or how you treat them or how their mother treats them or how your mother talks to her.
Oh yeah.
And you will need to learn to deal with this stuff. This is all just really practical, basic advice that comes from, all the way at the top of the world and like right-wing radicalization. But asking questions of this bullshit should make you better at like answering questions and being comfortable with asking questions and just comfortable in scrutiny in general for your own beliefs and for interacting with your friends and for interacting with your potential spouses. We've talked so many times about hard conversations with your partners about stuff. Sometimes it's how to parent the children. And if you don't have those questions, that ends up in a bad spot.
Man, I'm not sure I have anything to add there. Like, I think that's probably a good way to wrap it. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we get out here? Because I was wondering if you had opinions on like, it feels like there's so much drama at the moment. Like Taylor Swift releases an album and the world goes absolutely fucking insane. Like Elon Musk has gone from like, Elon Musk manages to always find new depths of insanity, which I cannot quite like put my finger on. I mean, what's been interesting you recently? What's been annoying you? That's actually where I always want to go. Like, what's annoying Ted at the moment is one of my favorite conversations.
So I adore the fact that like this is a favorite conversation for you, but the only thing that I can think of is like all the things that are immediately on my plate that I need to do for my work, which is insane. You're like, oh wow, what's annoying me? Well, I need to figure out like, people's food rotas and stuff like that. I need to figure out how to teach the coaches set pieces. I need to write up job descriptions for things that I've never thought of before. I do pay a little bit of attention, and I have been listening to a lot of music. You have some stuff that's good though, and like the Elon Musk stuff. My question is always like, what's his angle? Like with that guy these days, what's his angle? What is he trying to accomplish that is sort of behind the scenes? We should talk about the music though, because we'll both have opinions about the music.
Well,
have you listened to the album?
Yeah, like my wife is listening to it incessantly. My wife's
problem number one.
My wife's like a big. She's a Swiftie. I actually don't think she's a big Swiftie because like you can talk to her critically about Taylor Swift and she agrees with it. In the way that is not the case for quite a lot of Swifties. And also, I think, when Taylor Swift releases an album, she's kind of like, is this fun to listen to? I don't need her to explain the world to me. Like, I'm the same age as her. She's, and also I think kind of intellectually, like, older than her, because Taylor Swift's obviously in this, like, bubble. I find the music, it's like, fine. It's so unadventurous that I find that a bit demoralizing. Because, well, I was going to talk about J.K. Rowling. I don't really want to mention her. She's a real piece of shit. But it's but you know what I mean. It's demoralizing when someone has achieved such success that they could go out and take any risk they wanted to. They could go and try something completely insane. Like Taylor Swift could be like, I'm taking a year off. I'm going to go and live in Ethiopia and I'm going to make like a jazz record. Like she could do that. But the fact that she doesn't and she continues to do the same kind of thing, I find quite demoralizing. And then just on a personal level, I find it annoying that she refers to herself as like your English teacher. And I'm like, hun, did you even finish school? But then the other thing is like the whole I love Travis Kelce's dick thing. I was like, I don't believe you. Like, I'm not saying she doesn't love his dick.
Did you just cross over into Gaylor territory here? What just happened?
It's just, does it not sound like the 40-year-old virgin to you? Like, Emma sent me the lyrics. I was reading them and I was like, this sounds like when he's like, tits feel like a bag of sand in the 40-year-old virgin. Like, that's exactly what it sounds like when she's just like, oh, I love your like your meat stick. Ooh, I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is just garbage. Like, just say, if she straight up said, I love cock. I love Travis Kelce's cock. It is Travis, right? It is Travis.
Yes.
I know there's another one. There's another Kelsey, not
Jason.
another cock, but like there's another one Kelsey. Like, I love that dick. Like, give me that dick. Then I'd be like, clip that, by the way, Rishi.
That'd be so fun. Like that.
Yeah.
That album. Like, let's get Megan Thee Stallion out there. Like, let's get Nicki Minaj, who I know actually sort of like pays attention. Like that album, I want to listen to. That album is gonna be fucking fire. God, there are like a billion things to say about this. So first of all, I'm not surprised that you're like so in tune with the lyrics. Second, second of all, when you were talking about 40-year-old virgin and like feels like a bag of sand, I was like, oh, do you remember when John Mayer said that like Jessica Simpson was sexual napalm? I was like, why isn't she saying things like that?
She should be.
Yeah,
she's got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. Like that would be a fun concert moment, by the way. That would be like, I want to see that that concert again. I will show up. I'll pay whatever you have to for the tickets. The last time, 88,000 women singing at the top of their voice for 3.5 hours. Craziest thing I've ever been to. Like, as an experience, I loved it. Like, I actually liked the music, but this album's not great. I don't even think this album is good. It's got probably like 4 songs that I mostly like. And sometimes like Taylor stuff just like creeps on you. You're like, okay. I think Torture Poets Department is one that has like gradually grown a bit on me, but certainly not. There are a lot of things that I'm like not excited about. But there's 2 problems about this album. First of all, when people are happy, they almost never write good songs unless it's dance music. So like, why isn't this a dance album, right? Is it because Taylor can't dance that much? I don't know. She's dancing in a new video, but like, why is this not a dance music album? Like, why is she not in touch with like all of our favorite gay friend producers that are producing great fucking dance music? Because she's happy, and it's hard to write songs like she used to write when like your heart's in a good spot. That's my first opinion. My second opinion is actually the irony of the last track, which is Sabrina Carpenter's stuff has been fucking fun and funny in recent years for like 3-4 years. And having her on this track where like this album is so devoid of fun. It's just like, look, you're in a good spot. Where's your fun at? And Sabrina has been fucking fun and funny, and Taylor's allegedly a good writer, but like, where's the crispy funniness about it? Like, can't you hire a writer's room to like help you out with the lyricism on this thing? Like, bring some joy back into the fucking music, Taylor. You're the most popular, important musical artist in the whole world, and we got this. This is sort of, you knew I had a take in there somewhere.
No, I'm glad. I love it. But like, I completely agree. You're like, there are angles you could go. You can go like bubblegum pop here. You could do like Dua Lipa type, like disco, like new disco. Like that would have been totally a way to go. Like that. This is where I am. But I kind of think you're also, she's, I know that she's the same age as me because she has an album named after the year she was born. Also the year I was born. And I look at her and I'm like, man, I'm married. I got 2 fucking kids, and like I'm old as hell. Like, you still kind of sound to me like a 27, 28-year-old. And I also just think that this is her not realizing when she needs to change as an artist. And I guess it's difficult because she has such a young audience. But I don't know if you read Sally Rooney's books, but Sally Rooney has like, Normal People and Conversations with Friends.
No, and then Normal People is some of the best like TV series, but also like that's hard stuff too.
Yeah, but she did those 2, and then she did Beautiful World, Where Are You? And in that book, like that book was quite poorly received, and I really liked the first 2, and I did not like that book. And it felt like, oh, you're doing the same as these previous 2 books, but just not quite as well. And it might be time for you to evolve. And then she did. She went away and came back with like a totally different kind of novel. And similarly, I wonder if like now these last 2 albums have not been quite so happily received. Maybe now Taylor would be like, I'm going to go away. I'm going to get married. Maybe she'll have a kid. Maybe she'll do something else. But my hope is that she will come back as somebody who's close to 40, and that she'll say, oh, I actually have different things to say now. Like I have a whole new realm of experience to talk about, because this idea of like Taylor as somebody who like speaks to people and like makes them understand themselves on some deeper level. I was like, well, nobody's listening to this album and feeling that. Like this album isn't about anything.
Whereas, I want her Imogen Heap album. I want the one that like is after she's had kids, and like I want the happy song, and like just give me that from Taylor. Like I can rock with that. Like after you're a mom dealing with like all the bullshit and like all the hardness, like Sorry, I wasn't bringing that back to Travis Kelsey's cock, but it ended up there anyway.
Well, apparently everything is drawn into its gravitational orbit. You know, like his enormous dick that Taylor loves. Like, I mean, I did say some quite uncharitable things to my wife when I heard that song that are not necessarily repeatable here, but I will tell you off air. I just don't think no, I can't say that. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. But I think you're right. Like, it's hard to produce great art when you are just happy, but it is possible. You've just got to do something else. I can't remember who it was who said happiness writes white. It doesn't show up on the paper. But somebody said that, and it does feel like she's in that zone at the moment where she's like, I don't know what I have to say. Like, let's just put out another. The other part of it is that she's in like Steven Soderbergh area, where I'm like, I love Steven Soderbergh. I fucking love that guy, but he works insanely fast. He gets a script, he goes and shoots it. He shoots it really quickly. He's always been known for this. He brings everything in before schedule and under budget. But sometimes you're like, Steven, instead of doing 4 films in the last 3 years, would it not have been better to take one of those scripts and really work on it until it was super, super good? Like, wouldn't that have been more interesting? That's where I am with Taylor Swift. I'm like, take all this material, condense it, go over it again, and maybe we'll get to something that's like truly artistically interesting, rather than just Taylor's got another 10 songs that she kind of wants you to hear. That's how I feel about it.
You're so much better at the clips than I am. Like, you're gonna say something and people are just gonna be like, I love this. Like, cowboy boots are fucking crazy. Yeah. Anyway.
The cowboy boots thing is going to haunt me forever, I think.
I can't wait to get you on stage. Oh man, I saw some serious fuck off boots when I was in Copenhagen. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, like you look like you might be an executioner in the olden days. You just happen to be Danish and not very tan.
Do you ever have a thing where you feel like you've walked into a time warp? I dropped my kid off at school this morning, and then we walked back through the station, and in front, and there was one point where in front of me there was one guy with like long hair and a jean vest over a band shirt, and just looked like a roadie from the late 70s, early 80s. Then next to him there was a guy with like a really carefully manicured little goatee and a beret and a trench coat. And my wife was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, she was just like, have we walked into like a time warp where there's like a 60s revolutionary next to a roadie from the 70s? But that's how I feel whenever I see cowboy boots. I'm just like, it feels like I've stumbled through a glitch in the Matrix.
And that's a great point to stop. So, if you have enjoyed this episode, obviously like, subscribe, tell your friends. We might be coming to the end of our current run on this. We might be going on hiatus. So for those of you who have loved it and appreciated it, like, tell your friends about the back episodes. We got one more episode to record, and then we're going to take a big break because some idiot ended up getting too busy and some other idiot ended up volunteering to do a third show on the soccer podcast. So I'll tell you the truth, this has been the most rewarding sort of set of conversations and piece of art that I think that I've done. And obviously, like, I write and I'm talented about the writing stuff, but your work over here has really made this shine. And I'm just sort of the person that hangs out and has older opinions about stuff, and occasionally like pushes back. I'm like, do you really think that? And sometimes Patrick's like, no, I just like people to think that I think that.
Yeah, sometimes my mouth says things without my brain really getting involved. But like, no, I completely agree. This has been super rewarding and fun. And whenever we talk about something, I feel like I go away with a new idea. And there are things that you have said on this podcast that I use in my daily life, and I've even used with clients, like tools that I've taken away from it or perspectives that I've taken away from it. And when we met people, when we had our meetup drinks in the summer, so many people said really kind things. But also, like, we felt closer to them because of stuff that they were willing to tell us as a result of doing this podcast. So
yeah,
I've really enjoyed it, and Ted and I will still be, you and I are still going to be talking. We're still going to be doing podcasts together. But But yeah, I feel a bit sad. I feel a bit sad.
That's all right. Like, this is good. I think we're gonna still do some in-person stuff. We might need to get like, at least one of those a year scheduled. Um, I know that people have requested that as well. So like, they're like, yeah, we'd buy tickets, and really the tickets would be to just pay for the venue so that people could come see us somewhere. But yeah, this has been great. We got one more that's actually a really important one, and it's actually a good capstone to be able to discuss as well. These last two are like really important topics. And the frameworks, I think, are something that I was kind of happy to put out there in the world, partly because like I spent 3 years thinking about how to restructure my life and approach it in a way that made sense to me. Hopefully people have been able to take away parts of that. And I know even some of my past employees got in touch and they're like, oh, wow, the hard conversations episode is like great for me. And also the parenting episode was like great for me. And yeah, so there've been bits that people have taken away. But if you had specific things that you really liked and appreciated, now that you know that we're coming to at least a current wrap, let's not say that we'll be gone forever, and you'll still get stuff in the Patreon from the soccer one, because we are putting the B-roll there. And so if you were ever hoping for more degenerate conversations about stuff from my past or Patrick's past, less degenerate usually, but funnier, they'll exist there.
Less degenerate. Thank you. Well, thank you to everybody who's listened, I guess. And I actually have gone back to the hard conversations episode. I obviously skipped through your bits. I just listened to my own bits.
That's fine.
That's my favorite thing to do. But honestly, I go back to that stuff and I find it very useful. And also, if I ever have a conversation with you at work where I'm like, now I'm angry with Ted, then I'm just going to send you clips of yourself from the hard conversations episode and be like, you said to do this, motherfucker.
I'm not disagreeing. Occasionally I'll have reactions too. I am a human. This is how it works. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. We got one more coming up, and it is on a Dochi song that we're actually turning into an episode.